All right, it looks like we're just trucking along here. Okay, so next up is the windows. All right, so your windows again are the boxes here on your right-hand side of the Photoshop screen. So by default, and again, this should be the default, but if yours looks a little bit different, don't worry, it can be completely customized, and I'll try to help you get it back to the way that mine is. So I'm going to go over which of the default windows are already open for you, and then we'll go from there. So you'll find that you'll use specific windows all the time, and then you'll never use a lot of other windows. And these default windows aren't necessarily the ones that you will use most often. Photoshop has these presets for you, which I'll dive into more, called Workspace. And say you're a photographer, and maybe you'd want to check the photography workspace. So let's look at it. Okay, so it's a little bit different and not too different. But if you want to go back to the default, you'd go Workspace, Default. And it has different tools selected and different windows selected. But again, let's just talk about the default windows and see what happens, and we'll go from there. And we will customize later. All right, so again, up here at the top, we have color and swatches. So these all have to do with color. And we're going to have an entire color class later on, but for now, let's just talk about it a little bit. Again, as I mentioned, RGB goes along with designing for the web and designing for screens. If I was designing for print and I selected CMYK color whenever I first created my document, this would say CMYK here, but since I selected RGB, it says RGB. And RGB has values, so if I said, for instance, 342 by G of... Oops, sorry. 242 is what I meant. By 31 by 31, I would get this red color. And that's just a color I just made up randomly. But each color has a value, an RGB value. Also, each color has a CMYK value. Okay, so that's how that works. And then again, we have our color picker here, and I could just select a color based on these values. Or I can click here on this color. This is our foreground color, and I could select it this way. I actually prefer this view because it's a little bit larger and easier to see what I'm doing, but that's just me. That's my preference. And here again, you can see the RGB values here. The CMYK values are even here for our use, and that's all there is to know. So pressing OK gets us out of there, and now I have this new color selected. Going to swatches, these are all the default swatches in Photoshop. They're just trying to give you a wide range of swatches for your use right away. You can add swatches, you can delete swatches. We will definitely go into that in a later class. But for now, I just want you to know that it exists. So you can toggle between color and swatches. And if you prefer to select colors this way, you can literally just grab this purple color, and now you have that purple color selected. So if I make a square, you can see that it's purple. Okay, so here we have the next window is the adjustments and styles. We will work with adjustments and styles later on in another lesson. Adjustments, simply just adjust your layers and make them look all sorts of crazy ways. From changing the hue and saturation, we could turn things black and white this way. We can make things brighter, darker, add more contrast. All sorts of things can be done in the adjustments window. Down below is the most important window that we will be using the most often, and this is your layers window. Okay, so your layers are everything in Photoshop. We will be extensively covering layers. They are so important. They just change the way you work. They are my life. I dream about them at night. I wake up thinking about layers. And they're just such an amazing thing in Photoshop. That you definitely will need to know about. So this is your layers window. It is exceptionally important. It has a lot of doodads inside of it, a lot of things that it does. You won't need to know them all. I don't know them all, and I'm a Photoshop expert. You won't need to know them all. I don't need to know them all. You can pick and choose your battles, decide what you need to know, decide what you don't. I will show you the things that I use the most often with layers. Again, as I just showed you, each of the windows have this little menu here in which there are so many more options. So if I click here on color, look at all of these color presets. So if you're into Pantone colors, which is designing for print mostly, you can see Pantone presets here. You can load swatches. You can reset your swatches back to the default state, which is what we were at anyway. And then also, the thing to know about windows is that you can pull them out from one another and you can move them around. So I could pull this layer out, I could pull the layers window out, and then I can rearrange them. So I could put the layers window at the top if I wanted to. I could move this one down and put it onto the bottom and so on. If I don't want a layer, I can simply put it out here and then press the X. Okay? So that properties window that I just exit out of, that is the window that I never use and I don't care for it. It is up to you if you want to dive into it and figure it out. I'm not going to teach it to you because it's not my thing, but again, up to you. So this layer here, sorry, I moved everything. I can reset this back to the default. So if I go to up here, remember how I showed you window, workspace, and then essentials? Okay, so you also have them here. It's so handy that it's right here. So I'm going to do reset essentials, and it's putting everything back to the way it was. Because I don't actually want it rearranged like I had it. That's no fun. Okay, so let's go up here to history. This window is pretty darn important for me. I love the history window because it allows us to go back in time. I'll show you more on this later, but if you see when I click back, I'm literally going back in time to the last lesson that we were on before. And so clicking up here also goes all the way back to the beginning of what we were doing. And it's just so great, this history window. I love it so much. Let's get rid of it for now. Again, so if we're clicking on a window up here, you'll notice that we have so many other windows that we're looking at, and it's just so great to click these. And the ones that we don't want, we can click them again and deselect them. Again, we definitely want the layers window. That's crazy. So let's click that again to select it again. And so you can decide which of these windows you do and don't like. And at any time you want to reset your windows back to the default, again, you go Window, Workspace, Reset. And also you can do that up here in this drop down too, which is even better, more convenient. Okay, so that's it for Windows. See you on the next lesson.